Good evening. My name is Andrew Solano, and we're going to break down the International Capstone Diploma Seal. Before we jump into my next slide here, I kind of want to break down what this seal is. Essentially, it gives students the opportunity who have invested themselves in international related courses as well as extracurricular activities. And based on these two components, it enables students to learn and to be able to present something about what they learned and what they got out of these international opportunities. And simply what I got out of this was the international experience, the educational engagement that brought me this new perspective on the world. And the best way I can put it is these areas. One being American Red Cross and AFJRTC, and the second one being French and peer tutoring. Now let's jump in with American Red Cross and AFJRTC. You see here, I was involved with American Red Cross as both a blood donor ambassador and an engagement team leader. Essentially, the blood donor ambassador, helps out with blood drives within the community, but it supports a much larger mission, which is simply, the American Red Cross mission here of preventing and relieving suffering here at home and around the world. Simply put, by being at these community blood drives, we can help not only here around at our house and in our local community, but around the world to support people getting blood, due to blood shortages in certain areas or due to your blood type. But the main mission here is with the American Red Cross is I helped out with blood drives to help out the community and engage with the community to get encouraged to go to blood drives and give them a really great experience so that they'll return back to that another blood drive in the future. That way we can have more blood drives, have more participation. And that kind of goes into the second position here as engagement team leader. Essentially what I did was I was managing these other blood donor ambassadors and encouraging them to get involved with local blood drives to ultimately support this mission of helping those around the world. Simply put, the engagement team leader essentially helps these blood donor ambassadors again to encourage them and to participate at these blood drives, and then thus encourages the general public to want to go to blood drives. So overall, it helps the world, which leads me into AFJRTC. See, I was the vice commander and inspector general, and essentially, AFJRTC is particularly, for our nation, the mission here is to develop citizens of character dedicated to serving their nation and community. But I think there's a much larger goal here with AFJRTC is learning global, perspectives. And one of the classes I took was on global, perspectives in the Middle East, particularly, due to Afghan wars and wars in the Middle East that are still going on today with the Taliban, ISIS, you name it. But after JRTC in that course really demonstrated the the educational part of my engagement to the international experience, learning about the Middle East, learning about these wars, learning about these different experiences, learning about how the people here live totally different from where we live. Their toilet paper is made of like wood chips, which is crazy. Here we have toilet paper made of this soft material, but no, not over there. And then you learn about these other stories where they reuse water, and then you can get all these bugs, particularly in the Middle East. And it's a better perspective here. I think JRTC does is enabling it's participating people to not only develop character, but character and knowing the global perspective here. And that kind of leads me into my last 2 points here is community service, engaging with the community, engaging the perspectives of other people. That kind of led into this international experience and the global mission here, which I think combines this, is that through these community services, through these character learning, the educational portion, we can mix these together, engage a global mission that I feel that these two clubs and classes teach is really putting that perspective of educating ourselves, getting us more engaged into the international community and learning about these different perspectives, learning about these new curves to enhance our ability to talk to other people, to understand their culture, to understand different perspectives. These people have different religions, Sunni and Shia, for example, the Islam, religion, where I think in after JRTC, we learned about, this country that had, I think Shia, where the minority group was in charge of a majority who believed Sunni, which, was totally opposite of one another. And so essentially, I think the global mission here is teaching us new lessons, or education of that matter, and it basically focuses us in this new engagement. And this leads me into my last thing here is French and peer tutoring. Now, I was in French for 3 years. I was also part of the French club. And the main points here in French 3, all the other French 1 and 2, I, mainly learned about the language and the cultural values here, how to greet people, the respectful manner. But the French club here mainly went into the food and the cuisines, more so than the traditions, and that we learned, how to, approach different people in different ways. But the main point here is, actually eating different foods, different cuisines, and kind of like, learning from that new perspective, that new flavor, I guess you can say, and really engaging with people who create the food, and learning from a new experience here. Really great food, but ultimately it brings you into a new education, new engagement here, which leads me to my peer tutoring point here is, I was involved with peer tutoring. And the peer involvement was involved with ESOL students, people who didn't speak English as their first language, and ultimately taught students how to speak English. And what I did as a peer tutor is I was able to go in these ESOL classes in which they're learning, different studies, but also on a perspective of learning English. So it's combined English and different multiple studies, and we're able to take a period and go in there and help these students as peers, learning English and learning the curriculum that they're trying to learn. And ultimately, these two things, I think, with the culture values, the food, the learning, traditions, and then also the peer involvement of getting the very fabric of connection on a personal level, really involves and really instills this, like, again, this big factor here of education and the engagement of the international experience. And I think the big here thing with these, I keep throwing it around, the education, the more engaged, I think it takes into account the big conclusion here is to become truly successful globally, we must take into account history, language, passions, compassion, and drama of foreign affairs. And that is simply put, to be able to, reach at a global scale, to be able to communicate, to be able to reach other people, we must take in effect these key areas. As I learned, throughout French, peer tutoring, AFJRTC, American Red Cross, and many more other, avenues. But truly, this is what I have learned through the education that has brought me to be more engaged through the international community, has brought me this conclusion. And this conclusion, I think, is very vital to, success and, diplomacy, whether we are enemies or not. I think it's a big account when we talk about global affairs and global, issues, whether that may be Rwanda with the Rwanda incident, or, the Taliban or ISIS, crisis over there, or the Afghans, war, or even, the United States and Mexico. I think it really accounts to the passions and the, the avenues that we can reach in our global mission. But thank you so much for joining this presentation. I hope you have a great day.